Hello, my name is Damon. We're at Blue Fish Aquarium, and we'll be talking about red-footed tortoises today with some small segues into some other species, such as your Russian tortoises and Hermann's tortoises, sulcatas, that kind of deal. First off, I've got our little male here. This is our our last addition into our Redfoot pen. So just a little guy here is a confirmed male, as we recently found out, which is very exciting as we have 2 adult females so far. These guys can reach a staggering 11 to 14 inches, so they are on the smaller size for a tortoise, but they are a very fun one, having a lot more personality in my own experiences than some of these smaller species, than them even. So males can reach easily over 14 inches head to tail. And can be, 15 to 30 pounds is pretty standard range for them, but some have actually reached over 30 pounds, some Red Foot tortoises, that is. So, and they'll live to be about 50 years at a minimum, as long as they have proper care. One of the oldest known aged Red Foot tortoises in captivity is currently about 70 years old, and still going very strong. So that gives us high hope for all of our fun little guys and girls here. And if this kind of content interests you, definitely don't forget to like and subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Blue Fish Aquarium. So, as you can see, a little bit of a size difference between a 20-year-old female and about a 2-year-old male. So, we're going to be moving into diet now for these guys and girls. So, they are omnivorous, so they will eat both plant matter and protein matter, so it's very important to mix it up for them. Their diet should consist mainly of leafy greens and vegetables, being about 70% of their diet. So you can feed them collard greens, mustard greens, kale, sweet peppers, fun things like that. But then also there's going to be a little bit of fruit that they need also. So you can feed them like bananas, mango, strawberries, blueberries. That's all very good for them. That should make up about 20% of their diet or so, give or take. And then last thing is the protein, as I was talking about. They are omnivorous, so they are going to need a very high protein diet on a very small occasion. So I feed them this about once a week at most. Sometimes I'll go every other week. It just depends on the season. With my females, they do need a little bit more protein during that time. So I'll feed them, silverside fish or tilapia, some small rodents, and occasionally I'll even give them like a frozen krill that I'll thaw out for them. This is Sophie. She is one of our 19-year-old females. She is soon to be 20 in the next couple months. But our next topic is going to be temperature and humidity. So these Redfoot tortoises do come from a very tropical region in South America and Central America. So they are going to need very high humidity and pretty warm temperatures year-round. So temperature should be, no less than about 75 degrees or so, or anything under 23 degrees Celsius is going to be subpar, which can lead to respiratory infections or pneumonia, which is not very good for them, as you probably know. On the high end of temperature should be, 78 to 85 degrees Fahrenheit with a basking spot of about 90 to 93. So ambient should be about 25 to 29 degrees Celsius, and their basking spot should be about 33 degrees Celsius, give or take a couple. So, in terms of humidity, they are going to need a very high humidity, being 80% at all times. If it is under 80%, you're going to have some major issues. So we try and keep them very high here, well over 80% at most times. Unfortunately, it's very hard to do that with an open enclosure. So the way that we do that is we use a fogger here. This is a Zoomed Reptifogger. So it really kicks out a ton of steam for them. It's basically a little sauna back there underneath their basking spot. So it's always at 100 degrees plus, 100% humidity plus, and it's about 92, 95 degrees in there most of the time. So nighttime temperatures, if it drops under 70, you're going to have some major issues with them long term. So you will want to use something to keep them warm during nighttime. What I like to use a lot is ceramic heat emitters. They do a great job. They don't give off any light, so it's not going to mess up their day and night cycle at all. So it's a very viable option to keep them warm at night. Some people use heat mats or heat cables, but with how much substrate they use to keep that humidity, it can really only do so much, unfortunately, breaking through all that substrate on the level of the surface there. On the topic of lighting and heating for them to keep those temperatures up, I do have a solar glow here. This is going to be a great daytime basking bulb for them. You're probably going to need more wattage than what this one is. It's just for example. They do make a 125 and a 160 watt for it, but it does give off quite a bit of UV light for them, and it does kick off quite a bit of heat too. They're self-ballasted, so they last a real long time. At a minimum, they're going to last about 9 months, but I wouldn't run them past the year as the UV does run out of them pretty quick, unfortunately. But you can always continue using them as a regular heat bulb afterwards if you would like. I've had the bulbs themselves last for well over 3 years in the past. This is going to be the ceramic heat emitter I was talking about. This is a very high wattage version, but they make them anywhere from about 40 watts all the way up to the 250s by Exoterra, and I'm sure that you can get some others if need be as well for higher if you need that with a larger enclosure. Now, these don't give off any light like I was talking about, but they do give off quite a bit of heat, keeping that temperature up while not messing with the day and night cycle for your tortoises. So this is going to be one of the best options you can do for nighttime heating for them. Lastly, this is going to be the combo meter. So this measures both temperature and humidity. What's great about these is that you can actually move this little probe right here down around inside that enclosure, and you can get different temperature readings and humidity readings throughout the entire enclosure rather than doing stick-on analogs where you're going to be hoping and praying that one spot's perfect and that the rest of the enclosure is that same way, which unfortunately enclosures typically aren't, especially when they're big like these. So with the enclosure size too, just a little side note, we do recommend about 25 square feet for them. A lot of people like to do, like a 4x8 enclosure. I know it's a little larger than that 25 square foot, but for 25 square feet's pretty good there. So right now we are running about 12 foot by 3.5. Moving on to substrate for them, I highly recommend doing quite a bit of a mix for it. If you do just one, typically it'll dry out too fast and you're not going to be able to retain that humidity that you're looking for, even with the foggers. So what I like to do is I like to do a mix of many different types. So main one is going to be your plantation soil here. It's a very fine coconut fiber substrate, very absorbent. Unfortunately, with how fine it is, it does typically dry out pretty quick too under the amount of heat that it uses in the enclosure as well. So I'll mix it in with some coconut husk, or cocoa husk, sorry. This is a little bit more absorbent. It's larger chunks of the plantation soil, so it's basically the same substrate, just bigger versions of it, but it's a lot spongier, releasing that humidity slowly over time. And then the rainforest here, it's just more of a filler. It's some small bark in there with a little bit of moss mixed in. Mixing this into just really helps with making sure that everything is keeping proper humidity. Unfortunately, I am sold out of it at the current time, but forest moss by Exoterra that comes in bricks, or sphagnum moss, which a lot of different reptile suppliers will sell also, that's going to be very important to mix in as well. That really helps out with the humidity. I got 2 different options for food, not for redfoots necessarily, but for tortoises in general. I know not everyone's going to be able to do fresh greens and all these good foods for them every day, but these are still very adequate to say the least. So right here I have a forest tortoise diet. It's going to be a little bit higher in protein, a little bit lower in fiber than what your grassland grazers are going to want. And with the redfoots being a forest tortoise and tropical island tortoise, they will prefer this one. It'll be better for them overall. Now, say you have a Russian tortoise, Herman's tortoise, or a sulcata, something like that, something that's going to be a little bit more grassland like species. This is going to be a lot better for them. Very high in fiber, very low in protein, so it's going to help them with their digestive system a lot better than what this food would, as this would actually harm them in the long run of feeding them the forest tortoise diet. So you definitely don't want to get these mixed up in the long run. Again, that can be very detrimental. We at Bluefish hope you found this video entertaining and educational. If you learned something new, I hope that you like and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Blue Fish Aquarium, and we'll see you in the next video.